Princess Valara stood at the tall window of her room and looked out at the purple sky of Kethra Prime. She was 21 years old, young by the standards of her people, and she had lived her entire life inside the walls of the Imperial Palace. The palace was made of white crystal that glowed in the light of the twin moons. It was beautiful, but to Valara, it felt like a prison. She was the daughter of Emperor Zorth, the most powerful ruler in 12 star systems. The Kethrani people had been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. They believed they were better than all other species in the galaxy. They looked down on everyone else, especially humans. Humans were new to space travel. They had only discovered how to move faster than light 300 years ago. The Kethrani thought of them as children, simple creatures who lived short lives and made decisions based on feelings rather than logic. Valara had been taught since childhood that humans were beneath her. She had never questioned this teaching until now. A human diplomatic ship had arrived at Kethra Prime 3 weeks ago. The humans wanted to negotiate for mining rights in the Outer Rim, a distant part of space that the Kethrani Empire claimed but never used. Emperor Zorth had agreed to meet with them, not because he cared about their request, but because he enjoyed watching lesser species beg for favors. Valara had no reason to attend the diplomatic meetings. She was a princess, but she had no real power. Her 6 older brothers handled all matters of state. Her father expected her to look pretty, attend formal events, and eventually marry whoever he chose for her. She was decoration, nothing more. But she had gone to the first meeting anyway, out of boredom more than anything else. She had expected to see crude barbarians stumbling over their words. What she found instead changed everything. The human delegation was led by Ambassador Patricia Cole, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She spoke the formal Kethrani language well enough, though with a heavy accent. Beside her stood several assistants and advisors. One of them caught Valara's attention immediately. His name was Daniel Carter. He was young for a human, maybe 28 years old. He was not tall or particularly good-looking. He had brown hair that stuck up in odd directions and a face that seemed too kind for a diplomat. But when he stepped forward to translate a complex legal term, he spoke in perfect Kethrani. Not just correct Kethrani. Perfect Kethrani. He used a formal court dialect, the ancient form of the language that only scholars and nobles knew. His pronunciation was flawless. His grammar was better than most Kethrani courtiers. Valara felt her mouth fall open. She quickly closed it and looked around to see if anyone had noticed. No one had. They were all focused on the ambassador. After the meeting ended, Valara found herself walking toward the human delegation instead of leaving with the other nobles. She told herself she was just curious about the translator. Nothing more. Daniel was gathering papers when she approached. He looked up, saw her royal markings, and immediately bowed low. "Your Highness," he said in Kethrani. "It is an honor." "You speak our language very well," Valara said. "Where did you learn?" Daniel straightened up. He had brown eyes, she noticed, warm and open. Most people looked away when she spoke to them. Protocol demanded it. But Daniel held her gaze for just a moment longer than was proper before lowering his eyes. "I studied at the University of Chicago on Earth," he said. "I have always loved languages. When I was young, I read about the Kethrani Empire and became fascinated. I spent 10 years learning to speak properly." 10 years, Valara repeated. "For a language you might never use." "I believed I would use it someday," Daniel said. "And here I am." There was something in his voice that Valara could not identify. Confidence, perhaps, or hope. Whatever it was, she found herself wanting to hear more. "I would like to hear about your studies," she said. "Perhaps you could tell me more about human interest in our culture." Daniel looked surprised. "I would be honored, Your Highness." "When would be convenient?" Valara knew she should not do this. Spending time alone with a human would cause a scandal. Her father would be furious. Her brothers would mock her. The court would whisper about her for years. "Tomorrow evening," she said, "in the northern gardens, after the third moon rises." She walked away before he could respond. Her heart was beating fast in her chest. She did not understand why she had said those words. She only knew that she needed to see him again. The next evening, Valara dismissed her servants early and slipped out of her chambers through a door that few people knew existed. The palace was full of secret passages built by paranoid emperors over thousands of years. Valara had discovered most of them when she was a child, exploring out of loneliness. The northern gardens were quiet at this hour. Most of the court was attending a concert in the great hall. The flowers here glowed softly in the moonlight, their petals open to catch the cool night air. Daniel was already waiting. He stood by the fountain, looking up at the stars. He wore simple clothes, not the formal robes of the diplomatic meetings. He looked younger this way, more real. "You came," Valara said. He turned and smiled. It was a strange smile, crooked and warm. Kathrani did not smile like that. Their faces were not made for it. "I was not sure you would," Daniel admitted. "This is dangerous for both of us." "I know," Valara said. "I do not care." They walked together through the garden. Daniel talked about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests, about cities full of millions of people living their ordinary lives. He told her about his mother, a woman named Linda, who had raised him alone after his father died in a mining accident when Daniel was young. "She worked 2 jobs to send me to school," Daniel said. "She always told me I could be anything I wanted to be. She never stopped believing in me." Valara did not know what to say. The idea of a parent believing in a child was strange to her. Her father saw her as a tool to be used. Her mother had died when Valara was young, and she barely remembered her. What do human mothers do? Valara asked. How do they show this belief? Daniel thought about it. My mother used to sit with me while I studied. She did not understand what I was reading, but she would bring me food and make sure I was comfortable. When I failed a test, she did not punish me. She told me to try again. When I succeeded, she cried with happiness. Valara felt something strange in her chest. It was not pain exactly. It was more like an emptiness she had not known was there. That sounds wonderful, she said quietly. Daniel looked at her with those warm brown eyes. What about your family, Your Highness? What are they like? No one had ever asked Valara about her family. Everyone assumed they knew, because everyone knew about the Emperor and his children. But no one knew what it was like to be one of those children. My family is complicated, she said. My father is powerful but cold. My brothers compete with each other for his approval. I am the youngest and the only daughter. I do not compete because there is nothing for me to win. That sounds lonely, Daniel said. Valara stopped walking. She looked at this strange human with his messy hair and kind eyes. He had just named something she had felt her entire life but never had words for. Yes, she said. It is very lonely. They stood in silence for a moment. The moons moved slowly across the purple sky. Somewhere in the distance, music played from the concert hall. I should go, Valara said finally. If anyone finds me here with you, there will be trouble. Will I see you again? Daniel asked. Valara knew the right answer. She should say no. She should end this before it began. She should remember who she was and who he was in the vast distance between their worlds. Yes, she said. Tomorrow night. Same time. She walked away into the darkness, and she did not look back. But she was smiling, something she rarely did. For the first time in years, she was looking forward to tomorrow. The meetings continued for weeks. Every night, after the palace grew quiet, Valara would slip through the secret passages and meet Daniel in different hidden places. Sometimes they walked in the gardens. Sometimes they sat in the old observatory that no one used anymore. Sometimes they simply stood on a balcony and watched the stars. Daniel told her stories about Earth. He described snow, which Valara had never seen. He explained how humans celebrated birthdays and holidays. He talked about music and art and books. He made her laugh with tales of his clumsy attempts to learn Kethrani dancing from videos he found on the network. "I fell over a chair," he said, demonstrating the movement with his arms. The video instructor would have been horrified. Valara laughed until her sides hurt. She could not remember the last time she had laughed like that. Maybe never. In return, she told Daniel about her life. She explained the complicated rules of the Kethrani chord, where every word and gesture had hidden meaning. She described the endless formal dinners, where she had to sit in silence while her brothers discussed matters of state. She talked about her childhood, spent mostly alone while tutors tried to make her into a proper princess. "What did you want to be?" Daniel asked one night. They were sitting in the old observatory, surrounded by dusty star charts and ancient telescopes. "When you were young, what did you dream about?" Valara had to think about this. No one had ever asked her what she wanted. From the moment she was born, her path had been decided. "I wanted to explore," she said finally. "When I was small, I found a book about the first Kethrani explorers. They traveled to new worlds and discovered new species. They were brave and free. I wanted to be like them." "What happened to that dream?" Daniel asked. "I grew up," Valara said. "I learned that princesses do not explore. Princesses sit in palaces and wait to be married to whoever will strengthen the empire." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "On Earth, we have a saying. It is never too late to become what you might have been." Valara looked at him. In the dim light of the observatory, his face was half in shadow. He looked serious and kind at the same time. "You really believe that?" she asked. "I have to believe it," Daniel said. "I grew up poor. My mother cleaned houses for rich people. Everyone told me I would never amount to anything. But I wanted something more. I wanted to see the stars. So I studied and worked and refused to give up. And here I am, sitting in an alien palace, talking to a princess." He smiled that crook smile of his. Valara felt her heart do something strange in her chest. "You are very brave," she said. "No," Daniel replied. "I am very stubborn. There is a difference." Valara reached out and took his hand. It was warm and solid. Human hands were different from Kethrani hands. They had 5 fingers instead of 4, and the skin was softer. She had never touched a human before. She had been taught that it was wrong, that humans were dirty and beneath her, but holding Daniel's hand felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Tell me more about Earth," she said. "Tell me about your home." Daniel talked for hours. He described his childhood home, a small house in a small town surrounded by cornfields. He told her about his best friend growing up, a boy named Kevin, who now worked as a doctor. He explained how he had spent years in libraries, teaching himself languages no one else cared about. "Why languages?" Valara asked. "Why not something more practical?" "Because language is how we understand each other," Daniel said. "When you learn someone's language, you learn how they think. You learn what matters to them. You learn their history and their hopes and their fears. Every language is a window into another world." Valara thought about this. She had never considered language as anything special. It was just how people communicated. "And you learned our language to understand us," she said slowly. "To understand the Kethrani." "Yes," Daniel said. "And the more I learned, the more I realized that we are not so different. You have the same hopes and fears as humans. You love your children. You mourn your dead. You dream about the future. The only difference is that you have had more time to build your civilization. Many of my people would disagree with you, Valara said. They believe we are superior. What do you believe? Daniel asked. Valara did not answer right away. She had grown up believing that the Kethrani were the greatest species in the galaxy. It was what everyone told her. But sitting here with Daniel, holding his hand, she could not find evidence to support that belief. I believe, she said carefully, that I have been taught many things that may not be true. Daniel squeezed her hand. That is a brave thing to say. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The old telescope above them pointed at a distant star cluster that had not been studied in centuries. Dust covered everything, but Valara found she did not mind. This forgotten place felt more like home than her luxurious chambers ever had. I should tell you something, Daniel said finally. His voice was serious. What is it? The negotiations are not going well. Your father keeps changing the terms. Every time we agree to something, he adds new conditions. Ambassador Cole thinks he is playing games with us, trying to humiliate the delegation. Valara sighed. This sounded like her father. He enjoyed showing his power over others. He did not care about the mining rights. He cared about making the humans feel small. I'm sorry, she said. My father is a difficult man. It means we might have to leave soon, Daniel said. If the negotiations fail, there will be no reason for us to stay. Valara felt panic rise in her chest. She had not thought about Daniel leaving. These past weeks had been the happiest of her life. The idea of going back to her lonely existence was unbearable. How long? She asked. A few weeks, maybe. A month at most. Valara stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the twin moons hung low in the sky, casting silver light over the palace gardens. Everything looked peaceful and beautiful, but she felt like she was drowning. I do not want you to go, she said quietly. She heard Daniel stand up behind her. He walked over and stood beside her at the window. I do not want to go either, he said. Valara turned to face him. They were standing very close now. She could see the small details of his face, the lines around his eyes, the way his hair fell across his forehead. This is impossible, she said. You are human. I am Kethrani. My father would never allow any relationship between us. He would kill you before he would let that happen. I know, Daniel said. So why are we doing this? Valara asked. Why do we keep meeting? What is the point? Daniel reached up and touched her face gently. His fingers were warm against her skin. Because some things are worth the risk, he said. Because meeting you has been the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. Because when I am with you, I feel like anything is possible. Valara closed her eyes. She knew she should pull away. She knew this could only end badly. But she could not make herself move. In human stories, Daniel said softly, this is usually the part where two people kiss. Valara opened her eyes. Show me, she said. Daniel leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. It was gentle and warm and strange. Kethrani did not kiss like this. But Valara found that she understood it perfectly. It was a way of saying something that words could not express. When they pulled apart, Valara was shaking. Not from fear, but from the intensity of what she felt. I think, she said slowly, that I am falling in love with you. Daniel smiled his crooked smile. I know I am falling in love with you. They stood together by the window, holding each other as the moons moved across the sky. Neither of them talked about what would happen next. Neither of them wanted to think about the impossibility of their situation. For now, this moment was enough. For now, they had each other. But both of them knew, somewhere deep inside, that this could not last forever. Secrets had a way of coming out. And when this secret was discovered, it would change everything. High Inquisitor Mordith had served the Kethrani Empire for 300 years. He had gray skin and cold yellow eyes that seemed to see through everything. His job was simple. He protected the Emperor and the royal bloodline from all threats. He had killed traitors. He had crushed rebellions. He had done terrible things in the name of the Empire. And he slept well every night. When his spies first reported that Princess Valara was sneaking out of her chambers at night, Mordith was curious, but not worried. Young nobles often had secret adventures. It was usually nothing important, but when the spies reported who she was meeting, Mordith felt something he had not felt in decades. Shocked on, the princess was meeting with a human diplomat. They were talking and laughing and spending hours together in the old observatory. The spies had recordings. They had images. The evidence was clear and impossible to deny. Mordith watched the recordings in his private office. He saw the princess holding the human's hand. He saw them embrace. He saw them kiss by the window in the moonlight. His stomach turned with disgust. The princess, a child of the royal bloodline, was lowering herself to the level of vermin. She was betraying everything the Kethrani Empire stood for. Mordith knew he had to tell the Emperor. He did not want to. Emperor Zorith had a terrible temper, and this news would make him angrier than Mordith had ever seen. But there was no choice. The princess had committed a crime against the Empire itself. He walked to the throne room with the recordings in his hand. Emperor Zorith was sitting on his throne, reviewing reports from the outer colonies. He was a large Kethrani with golden scales and eyes that burned like fire. Even after ruling for 200 years, he looked strong and dangerous. "Your Majesty," Mordith said, bowing low, "I bring news that will disturb you greatly." "Speak," the Emperor commanded. Mordith activated the recordings. They played in the air above his hand, showing Valara and Daniel together in the observatory. The images were clear. There was no way to pretend they showed anything other than what they were. Emperor Zorith watched in silence. His face did not change, but his hands gripped the arms of his throne so hard that the metal began to bend. When the recordings ended, the throne room was silent. Mordith waited, not daring to speak. Finally, the Emperor spoke. His voice was calm, which was more frightening than if he had screamed. "Arrest the human," he said. "Put him in the deepest cell. He will be executed at dawn." "Yes, Your Majesty," Mordith said. "And the princess? Bring her to me. She will watch the execution. Then she will be sent to the monastery on the ice moon. She will spend the rest of her life there, praying for forgiveness for her sins." Mordith bowed and left the throne room. He gathered a squad of guards and went to the human quarters. Daniel was asleep when they broke down his door. He barely had time to wake up before the guards grabbed him. They beat him when he tried to resist. One of them broke his arm. They dragged him through the palace corridors, leaving a trail of blood on the white crystal floor. In her chambers, Valara was sleeping peacefully, dreaming of Daniel and the future they might have together. She did not hear the commotion. She did not know anything was wrong until her door burst open and guards filled her room. "Princess Valara," Mordith said, stepping forward, "you are to come with us. Your father wishes to speak with you." Valara's heart froze in her chest. She knew immediately that something terrible had happened. "What is going on?" she demanded. "Where is Daniel?" "The human has been arrested," Mordith said. "He will be executed in the morning for the crime of corrupting a member of the royal family." Valara felt the world spin around her. This could not be happening. This had to be a nightmare. "No," she said. "No, this is wrong. He did nothing wrong. I pursued him. The fault is mine." "Yes," Mordith agreed. "The fault is yours. But it is the human who will pay the price. Come with us, princess." Valara wanted to fight. She wanted to scream and resist and tear the guards apart. But she knew it would do no good. There were too many of them, and she had no weapons, no power, nothing but her words. She followed the guards to the throne room. Her father was waiting. Emperor Zoroth looked at his daughter with eyes full of cold fury. "Do you know what you have done?" he asked. "Father, please listen to me," Valara began. Silence. The emperor roared. "You have shamed our bloodline. You have lowered yourself to mate with vermin. For 10,000 years, the Kethrani have kept our blood pure. And you would destroy that legacy for a human?" Valara fell to her knees. "Please," she begged. "Daniel has done nothing wrong. He is kind and intelligent and good. He does not deserve to die. He deserves far worse than death," Emperor Zoroth said. "But execution will have to do. And you will watch. You will see what happens to those who dare to touch what belongs to the Empire." Something inside Valara changed in that moment. She had spent her entire life being obedient. She had followed the rules and accepted her place. She had never questioned her father's authority. But now, kneeling on the cold floor of the throne room, she felt something new rising inside her. It was not fear. It was not sadness, it was anger. She stood up slowly. Her body was shaking, but her voice was steady. "No," she said. The word echoed through the throne room. The guards stared at her in shock. "No one ever said no to the Emperor. What did you say?" Emperor Zoroth demanded. "I said no," Valara repeated. "I will not let you kill him. Daniel is innocent. The only crime here is the hatred that blinds you to the value of other species. You dare speak to me this way?" the Emperor asked. His voice was quiet and dangerous. "I dare because someone must," Valara said. "For too long, our empire has believed it was better than everyone else. We have conquered and enslaved and destroyed. We have called it civilization, but it is cruelty. Daniel showed me that humans have value. They have love and courage and dreams. They are not vermin. They are people." Emperor Zoroth rose from his throne. He was tall and terrifying, a figure of pure power. "You are a child," he said. "You understand nothing of power, of duty, of the weight of empire. Guards, take her to her chambers. Make sure she cannot leave. Tomorrow, she will watch the human die. Perhaps that will teach her the cost of weakness." The guards grabbed Valara's arms. She struggled, but it was useless. They were too strong, as they dragged her away. She looked back at her father. "This is not over," she said. "I will not let you do this." Emperor Zoroth laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "You are nothing," he said. "You have no power, no allies, no weapons. What can you possibly do?" Valara did not answer. But as the guards took her to her chambers and locked the door behind her, she began to think. She had spent her whole life being underestimated. Everyone thought she was weak and useless. They were wrong. Valara knew secrets about the palace that no one else knew. She had discovered passages and hidden rooms during her lonely childhood explorations. She knew which nobles secretly hated her father. She knew which generals thought the emperor had grown too paranoid and cruel. She had resources. She just had never thought to use them before. Now she would. Daniel was going to be executed at dawn. She had only a few hours to save him. It was impossible, everyone would say. She was one person against an entire empire. But Valara remembered what Daniel had told her about humans. They were stubborn. They refused to give up, even when everything seemed hopeless. They believed that one person could make a difference. She decided to believe it too. Standing alone in her locked chambers, Princess Valara began to plan a rebellion. Valara stood in her locked chamber and forced herself to think clearly. Panic would not save Daniel. She needed a plan, and she needed it fast. She walked to her dresser and opened a hidden compartment behind the mirror. Inside was a small communication device that she had stolen years ago from one of her brothers. She had never used it for anything important before. Tonight, it might save Daniel's life. First, she needed all eyes. General Tarek commanded the Third Fleet, the most powerful military force in the Empire. He was also a man who had grown tired of Emperor Zorth's paranoid rule. The Emperor had executed 2 of Tarek's best officers last year for imagined crimes. Tarek had been quiet, obedient, waiting for the right moment. Valara typed a message. She kept it simple. The Emperor has arrested a human diplomat for no crime. He plans to execute him at dawn. I am organizing resistance. Will you join me? She sent it and waited. The seconds felt like hours. The response came quickly. What do you need? Valara felt hope spark in her chest. She typed back. Lock the orbital defense platforms. Prevent any communication from leaving the planet. I will handle the rest. Done. Tarek replied. And Princess? It is about time someone stood up to your father. Next, Valara contacted the merchant guilds. The Emperor had been taxing them harshly for decades, taking their profits to fund his endless wars. The guild leaders had complained quietly among themselves, never daring to speak publicly. Valara sent messages to 3 of the most powerful guild masters. She told them what was happening. She asked for their help. The responses came one by one. The merchant ships would block the transportation networks. Supplies would stop moving. The Emperor's supporters would find themselves isolated. Finally, Valara reached out to the colony worlds. These distant planets had been stripped of resources to feed the Imperial war machine. Their people worked long hours for little pay, sending everything they produced back to Kethra Prime. Valara did not promise them freedom. She did not promise them wealth. She simply told them the truth. My father's rule has been cruel and unjust, she wrote. He sees no value in anyone who is different from him. Tonight, he plans to execute an innocent man simply because he is human. I'm standing against him. I cannot do it alone. The responses poured in. Thousands of messages from people who had been waiting for someone to lead them. People who were tired of fear and cruelty. People who wanted something better. Valara had her army. Now she needed to rescue Daniel. She knew the palace better than anyone. As a lonely child, she had explored every corridor, every hidden passage, every secret room. She knew where the guards stationed themselves. She knew when they changed shifts. She knew the one path to the dungeons that no one else remembered. But she could not do this alone. She needed help inside the palace. There was one person she trusted. Her old nurse, a woman named Mara, who had cared for Valara since she was born. Mara was old now, working in the palace kitchens, but she had never stopped loving the princess she had raised. Valara used the hidden passage behind her closet to escape her room. The guards outside her door never knew she was gone. She found Mara in the kitchens, preparing food for the morning meal. The old woman nearly dropped a pot when she saw the princess. "Child, what are you doing here?" Mara whispered. "They will kill you if they find you." "I need your help," Valara said. "I need to get to the dungeons. I need to free Daniel." Mara's eyes widened. "The human?" "Princess, this is madness." "Maybe," Valara admitted. "But I love him, and I will not let him die." Mara was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I always knew you were different from your father," she said. "I will help you." Mara knew the palace almost as well as Valara did. She also knew which servants could be trusted. Within an hour, Valara had a small team of 6 people ready to help her. They moved through the dark passages as the third moon rose in the sky. Time was running out. Dawn was only 2 hours away. The dungeons were deep beneath the palace, carved into the bedrock of the planet itself. They were cold and dark and terrible. Valara had never been down here before. The smell alone made her stomach turn. They found Daniel in the smallest cell at the very bottom of the dungeon. His face was bruised and swollen. His arm hung at a strange angle. He looked up when the cell door opened, expecting more guards come to hurt him. When he saw Valara, his face transformed. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I came," she said, rushing to his side. "I am sorry it took so long." She helped him to his feet. He was weak from the beatings, but he could walk with support. "How did you manage this?" Daniel asked as they made their way through the tunnels. "I had help," Valara said. "I discovered that my father has made many enemies. All I had to do was give them a reason to act." They emerged from a hidden exit near the palace gardens. The night air was cool and fresh after the smell of the dungeons. In the distance, Valara could see lights moving in the palace. Alarms were starting to sound. "They know you are missing," Mara said. "You need to go now." Valara hugged the old woman. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." A shuttle was waiting in the northern gardens, hidden among the tall trees. It was one of General Tarek's ships, crewed by soldiers loyal to him. But before they could reach it, a squad of Imperial guards appeared, blocking their path. Leading them was High Inquisitor Mordith. "Did you really think you could escape, Princess?" Mordith said. His voice was cold with satisfaction. "Your father will enjoy punishing you for this." Valara stepped forward. She had never held a weapon in her life. But one of the servants had given her a small energy pistol, and she raised it now with steady hands. "Step aside," she said. "I do not want to hurt anyone," Mordith laughed. "You?" "A pampered princess who has never worked a day in her life. You cannot even fire that weapon." Valara pulled the trigger. The shot hit Mordith in the shoulder, spinning him around. He fell to the ground, screaming in surprise and pain. The other guards hesitated. They had been trained to obey without question. But their leader was down, and the princess they had always thought was weak had just shot him. "Your choice," Valara said to them. "Fight and die, or let us pass." The guards looked at each other. One by one, they lowered their weapons and stepped aside. Valara walked past them, supporting Daniel with one arm. Her heart was pounding, but her face was calm. They reached the shuttle. The pilot took off immediately, shooting up through the atmosphere toward General Tarek's flagship waiting in orbit. Valara looked out the window as Kethra Prime grew smaller below them. The palace was visible as a white dot surrounded by the lights of the capital city. She had lived there her entire life. She might never see it again. "Are you all right?" Daniel asked. Valara thought about the question. She had just shot a man. She had betrayed her father and her empire. She was now a fugitive with a price on her head, but she was also free for the first time in her life. She was with the man she loved, and she was finally doing something that mattered. "Yes," she said. "I am better than all right." General Tarek met them when they landed in the flagship's hangar. He was a tall Kethrani with battle scars on his face and respect in his eyes. "Princess," he said, bowing, "your message has spread across the empire. The colony worlds are rising. The merchant guilds have stopped all trade. Half the military has declared loyalty to you." "And the other half?" Valara asked. "Still loyal to your father." "This will not be easy." Valara nodded. She had known it would not be easy, but for the first time in her life, she was not afraid. "Then we have work to do," she said. Daniel squeezed her hand. She looked at him and saw pride and love in his eyes. "I always knew you were special," he said. "I just did not know how much." Valara smiled. It was not a polite smile or a formal smile. It was the smile of someone who had finally found her purpose. "Neither did I," she said, "but I am learning." The war lasted 3 months. Emperor Zorath refused to surrender. He called his daughter a traitor and promised death to anyone who supported her. He sent his most loyal fleets to crush the rebellion, but the rebellion kept growing. Every day, more ships joined General Tarek's fleet. Soldiers who had grown tired of endless wars. Officers who had lost friends to the Emperor's paranoia. Common people who wanted a chance at something better. The colony worlds rose up and took control of their own planets. They stopped sending resources to Kethra Prime. Without those resources, the Emperor's war machine began to struggle. The merchant guilds used their economic power to hurt the Empire's supporters. Businesses that stayed loyal to Zorath found their supplies cut off. Their credit disappeared. Their customers vanished. And through it all, Valara led. She surprised everyone, including herself. The pampered princess, who had never made a decision in her life, turned out to be a natural leader. She listened to her advisors, but made her own choices. She inspired her followers with speeches that came from her heart. She showed courage that made even the hardest soldiers respect her. Daniel stayed by her side throughout the war. His arm healed, though it never worked quite the same as before. He served as translator and diplomat, helping Valara communicate with the humans who joined the rebellion. Many human ships came to help, drawn by the story of a princess who had risked everything for one of their kind. The final battle took place in the skies. Above Kethra Prime. General Tarek's fleet surrounded the planet. The Emperor's remaining ships were badly outnumbered. They fought anyway, because the Emperor commanded them to fight. The battle lasted 6 hours. Valara watched from the flagship's command center as ships exploded in silent flashes of light. Each flash was hundreds of lives ending. She forced herself to watch everyone. "This is the cost of change," she said quietly to Daniel. "I need to remember it." When the last Imperial ship surrendered, Valara gave the order to land on Kethra Prime. She had to face her father. The palace was quiet when she arrived. Most of the servants and guards had fled. The crystal walls that had once seemed so beautiful now looked cold and empty. She found Emperor Zorath in the throne room. He was sitting on his throne, exactly where she had last seen him 3 months ago. But he looked different now, older, smaller. His golden scales had lost their shine. His eyes had lost their fire. He was alone. Everyone who had served him was gone. "So you have come," he said. His voice was tired. "My own daughter, come to take my crown." "I did not come for your crown," Valara said. "I came to end the cruelty. I came to build something better." "Better?" The Emperor laughed bitterly. "You have destroyed 10,000 years of civilization. You have torn apart everything our ancestors built. For what? For a human?" Valara walked closer to the throne. She was not afraid anymore. "Our ancestors built an empire on the backs of slaves," she said. "They called other species vermin and treated them like animals. That is not civilization, father. That is cruelty with a fancy name." "You sound like one of them," Zorath said with disgust. "Like a human." "I will take that as a compliment," Valara said. The Emperor's hand moved toward a weapon hidden in his throne. Valara saw it, but she did not react. She simply stood and waited. Zorath's hand stopped. He looked at the weapon, then at his daughter. Something in his face changed. "I could kill you," he said. "End this rebellion right now." "You could try," Valara agreed. "But it would not change anything. The people have already chosen. Even if you killed me, the rebellion would continue without me. My death would only make them angrier." Zorath was silent for a long moment. Then his hand fell away from the weapon. "When did you become so strong?" he asked. "I never saw this in you." "No one ever looked," Valara said simply. The Emperor closed his eyes. He suddenly looked very old and very tired. "What will you do with me?" he asked. "Nothing," Valara said. "You are no longer a threat. Live out your remaining years in exile." Think about what you have done. Maybe in time, you will understand." She turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard a sound she had never heard before. Her father, the great Emperor Zorth, was crying. She did not look back. The empire was dissolved within a month. In its place, Valara helped create a federation, bringing together Kethrani, humans, and a dozen other species as equal partners. It was not easy. There were arguments and disagreements and moments when everything seemed about to fall apart. But slowly, step by step, they built something new, something better. Valara was elected as the first leader of the Federation. She was 22 years old, younger than any leader in recorded history. But she had proven herself in fire. The people trusted her. She did not take a royal title. She called herself simply the first speaker. Her job was not to rule, but to help the different species work together, to make sure everyone had a voice. Daniel remained by her side. He did not become a prince or take any formal position. He continued his work as a linguist, helping to bridge the communication gaps between species. He had a gift for understanding what people really meant, even when their words were clumsy or unclear. They married in a small ceremony attended by friends from a dozen different worlds. There were no grand decorations or formal rituals. Just two people promising to face the future together. 1 year after the rebellion ended, Valara and Daniel sat together in the observation deck of their capital ship. They watched the stars in comfortable silence. "Do you ever regret it?" Daniel asked. "Giving up everything you knew?" Valara considered the question. She had lost her family, her home, her entire way of life. She had been called a traitor by those who still believed in the old ways. Some nights, she still dreamed of the palace and woke up missing the only home she had ever known. "I gave up one kind of life to build another," she said finally. "I gave up being a princess to become something more useful. I gave up isolation to find connection." She took his hand. "I gave up nothing that truly mattered and gained everything that does." Daniel brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "You know, on Earth, we have a lot of stories about princesses who need to be rescued. I have heard some of them," Valara said with a smile. "They seem very strange to me." "They do," Daniel agreed. "Because in our story, the princess did the rescuing. I had help," Valara pointed out. "You had courage," Daniel said. Everything else followed from that. They sat in silence, watching as a ship from one of the colony worlds passed by, its lights blinking in greeting. Valara remembered when those colonies had been suffering under her father's rule. Now they were free and thriving. "What are you thinking about?" Daniel asked. "The future," Valara said. "There is still so much work to do, so many problems to solve, so many people who still believe in the old ways." "And you are worried?" "A little," she admitted. "What if I fail? What if all of this falls apart?" Daniel put his arm around her. "Then we will build it again, as many times as it takes. That is what humans do. We fail, and we try again. We fall down, and we get back up. We refuse to accept that anything is impossible." Valara leaned into him. His warmth was familiar and comforting now, something she could not imagine living without. "I used to think humans were weak," she said. "My people all thought that. Short lives, emotional decisions, no great empire. And now?" Daniel asked. "Now, I think that what we called weakness was actually your greatest strength. You feel things deeply. You love fiercely. You hope even when hope seems foolish. Those are not weaknesses. Those are the things that change the universe." Daniel smiled his crooked smile. "That might be the nicest thing anyone has ever said about my species." "It is simply the truth," Valara said. "I was blind to it before. You helped me see." "We helped each other," Daniel corrected. Outside the window, the stars stretched on forever. full of possibilities and dangers and adventures waiting to happen. The future was uncertain. There would be challenges and setbacks and days when everything seemed impossible. But Valara was not afraid. She had learned that fear was just a feeling, not a fact. She had learned that one person could make a difference. She had learned that love was not weakness, but the greatest strength of all. And she had learned these things from a human, a member of a species her people had despised for centuries. That simple fact gave her hope for everything else. If she could change, anyone could change. If she could learn, anyone could learn. If she could find love across the vast distances between worlds, then peace was possible too. "Whatever happens," she said to Daniel, "I am glad I chose you." "Even knowing everything it would cost?" Daniel asked. "Especially knowing that," Valara said. "The cost proved that it was worth fighting for." Daniel kissed her forehead. "I love you, Valara of Kethra." "I love you too, Daniel of Earth." They sat together, watching the stars, two people from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. Their story was just beginning. There would be more challenges, more adventures, more chances to prove that the universe was bigger and more beautiful than anyone had imagined. But for now, this moment was perfect. Two hearts beating together. Two souls joined across the darkness of space. A princess who had chosen a human. A choice that had changed everything. And a love that had sparked a rebellion.